likes hot chocolate? Who likes hot chocolate? Focus question. Well, listen to Mike learn about how to have a successful business. Mike McCarthy hopped from foot to foot, trying to keep warm. A car drove by on occasion, but nobody stopped. When the mail carrier approached, Mike perked up. She'd brought a cup of lemonade last summer, but when his hopeful eyes met hers, she shook her head regretfully. Sorry, she said. I just never liked hot chocolate. She handed him the mail, wished him luck, hopped back in her trunk, and sped away. Matt glanced down at the advertising flyer the postal carrier had just handed him and its announcement, Lemons in Season. He shook his fist at the bright and beautiful citrus. Curse you, lemons, she said. Then he laughed bitterly and swooped at his runny nose. The lemons in the ad were less than half the price they'd been when he had run his lemonade stand the previous summer. The cost of lemons then had driven his business into the ground. Mike had tried to learn a lesson from that money-making failure, and every failure that followed. But he truly troubled thing was the lemons were in season now, in February. What kind of lesson was that? In February, people wanted something warm to drink, so that Saturday morning, Mike had been out at the curb since 9 to sell it to them. His eye-catching sign advertised creamy hot chocolate with a drawing of marshmallows melting into a small sea of warm cocoa. He had a full thermos, paper cups with Handel's even whipped cream in a can for demanding customers. He'd covered so many considerations this time around, so where was everybody? Sure, it was only 17 degrees, minus 8 degrees Celsius out. Colder with the wind chill, but the sun was shining, sort of. By 10, Mike considered drinking some of his product to warm up but stopped himself. That will eat straight into your profit margin. Esther came out at 10:30 waving $1. 1 cup of your finest hot chocolate, please. When his mom came out at 11, that remained his only sale, and the chill had settled into his bones. Honey, she said, come on inside. Mike tried to set his jaw unsuccessfully because his teeth were chattering. So instead, he turned his face defiantly into the wind, and when he sneezed, the sneeze blew back across his face. Gross, Mike muttered. That was the last straw. Mike let his mom lead him inside to run him a hot bath. He soaked in it for half an hour, then climbed into bed. Pickles curled up beside him and promptly fell asleep. Mike stared at the ceiling. Her parents crept in and sank onto the end of his bed. What's the matter, Mike? The matter, Mike intoned heavily, is that I'm a failure. You're not a failure, Mrs. McCarthy cried. Mr. McCarthy scratched his head. We have been wanting to talk to you about your mania for money, though. Esther wondered it. What is this, Grand Central Station? Mike cried. Mr. McCarthy started again. You were trying to buy the spy kit. Then you bought the spy kit. Then you turned around and sold your coat. Why? Mike stared at the ceiling and said nothing. What could he said. You didn't know the money for something else? His mom prompted. Derek isn't trying to sell you whatever he got for Christmas? His dad suggested. You are not being bullied? His mom asked. Threatened in any way? Slowly miserable, Mike met their eyes. Then just as slowly shook his head. It's not the money, he said. I don't really care about the money. His parents stared at one another in surprise. Their worried expressions made him feel awful. What happened was, I got the fever. The fever? His dad repeated cautiously. Mike nodded slowly. I was like those gamblers in Las Vegas. But isn't that what those guys care about? His mom asked. The money? Yes, said Mike slowly. But more than that, I think they care about winning. It feels so good to win, you know? Otherwise, otherwise, why keep gambling when you've already won big? You just take the money and walk away. You, so you're a gambler, Mrs. McCarthy said thoughtfully. No, objected Esther. No, agreed Mike. He groaned and shook his head, but Esther smiled at him encouragingly. Soon Mike went up. I mean, I've done some bad things, or nearly did them anyway. I sold Dad's awesome coat. I was gonna sell my teeth I almost stole from starved kids. Somewhere I haggled with the tooth fairy. Who haggles with the tooth fairy? I mean, what a jerk. It seemed like I was willing to do anything to make a quick buck. And each time, part of he was like, why are you doing these things? What is it that you want? I mean, yes, I wanted a spy kit. I wanted to win. I wanted the money. But Mike's voice wavered. But now the lemons are in season. Mike's voice broke. I'm like that guy who keeps pushing the rock up the hill and it keeps rolling back down over his face. He turned and gave his pillow a discouraged punch, then sat up and to probed it behind his back. It's depressing, she said, but it sounded less depressed. I mean, sure, if somebody handed me $1 million, that would be fantastic. But how much more fantastic to make it? Esther beamed and nodded. Mike's head lifted bit by bit. Yeah, he said, almost to himself. I just went about it wrong. Whenever Mike got excited, his right foot jiggled. Now, as his family watched, the dead bedspread over his foot began to shake. Mike's eyes began to glow. His parents looked at one another and sighed in relief. Mike was back. Take birthday money, you spend that money and it's gone. Same with selling Christmas clothes or teeth. Sure, you could sell all the stuff you already own, but then what? A life of dentures. That's what. You can run a good business that way with stuff that's gonna Run out. Limited resources, offered his dad helpfully. Right, Mike cried, pointing at him. That's a rotten business model. I want a business that can go and go. There's a word for that. What's that word? Sustainable, his mom said. Right, cried Mike. I want a business that's sustainable. The demand has to be sustainable, something people actually want or need. But the supply has to be sustainable too, because business is forever. He handed Pickles to his sister, pushed back his covers, and jumped to his feet. When he turned to face his family, his smile was bright. I'm going for a walk, he announced. It's 17 degrees out, Mrs. McCarthy cried. Mike winked at her. Don't. I know it, he said.